and welcome to the Cough and Cold edition, or episode of Kurtski's Garage. We are at the Nelson Classic Car Museum in Nelson, which is the west coast of the South Island of New Zealand. This is one of the area's premier collections, so I look forward to bringing it to you. And it's a bright day and I'm squinting and not feeling great, but let's not let that stop us from going to see some really cool cars. And there's a couple of things out here that we're going to take a quick look at first. So have a look at this really cool Pontiac in its own Matchbox blister pack. So we see these sometimes at classic car shows in Canada, but this is a real novelty here in New Zealand, and this is a real sweetheart. That's a nice touch. And we're going to have a quick look at another Pontiac at the entrance to the museum. I thought it was a 60 Bonneville, might be a 59, but it's a pretty cool four-door flat top. No, I was right, 1960, and very cool. So we're gonna go in, check out the rest of the cars.
Feeling better?
Yes, I'm looking at cars. I always feel good when I look at cars. 1911 Model T. Metallurgique.
Yeah, look.
Well, look at this. Mrs. Kurtski has hopped right into the 1911 Renault Touring, and I think she looks rather spiffy.
I like it because it's high.
It's basically a RAV4 from 100 years ago. Be gentle. Okay. Oh.
Or is that a speedometer?
Might be. I can't quite see from here. This controls the engine timing, spark advance, that kind of thing.
Okay, that's funny.
Please don't push my buttons. I push Mrs. Kurtski's buttons pretty well, don't I? Yeah.
Only after you buy me dinner.
PG-13, sweetheart. PG-13.
It's actually really nice leather seats.
Yeah. I think this is where you belong.
I'm gonna try this one. This is like a big carriage. Oh, I like this.
Because you sit even higher?
And somebody else can drive me. Look how that one has like back glass panels.
In coach building, that might be called a dual cowl Phaeton. And that would be kind of the second cowl, second windshield for sure. You might see a true dual cowl from something in the 1930s. I would bet it's here. But I'm rambling. So we have another Jaguar XJSC here, similar to what we saw at the Omaka collection a couple of days ago. This one you can see has the T-tops out and the soft top down. This was the closest that Jag was doing to a production convertible in light of the impending, or thought to be impending, US legislation prohibiting convertibles. For many, one unintended touch of the XJSC was doing away with the rather controversial flying buttress roofline C-pillar, as you can see on this coupe. Personally, I think that design detail gives the XJS its most distinctive feature, but controversial it is. So we're going to take a look at the other Jags here in greater detail. You can see a couple of E-types, might be a Series 1. Let's see, 67. So it may be that infamous Series 1.5. But regardless, beautiful. And then we've got, I assume, a V12 Series 3. Yep. Jag E-type V12. So we have a Series 3 coupe with an automatic, and the convertible has obviously a stick shift, which I think is what you want in these. But let's have a look at some of the other sedans. As a late model used car you can enjoy, I think these Jags make exceptional value. Now, if you want full-on classic Jag sedan, you really can't do much better than a Series 3 XJ. Straight 6 if you want trouble-free, and of course the V12 if you want all the Jagness and lousy fuel economy. When I see one of these, it really makes me want to add an XJS Series 3, or XJ Series 3 sedan rather, sorry, to my personal collection. I think they're absolutely beautiful, and a straight 6 would be much less problematic to run. I also really like these, the XJC, so a coupe body built on sort of a shortened sedan platform. And actually, if truth be told, this would be the forerunner of the XJS, since that too is built on a shortened wheelbase of the XJ sedan platform. This one has a vinyl top and a sunroof, which I have to think both options were relatively rare for this car. Oh, and a manual shift. This has aftermarket rims, but it certainly doesn't detract from the car's overall look. And this one is a V12 1976. So that would be pre-HE, or high efficiency, which was basically more of a hemispherical combustion chamber head. So it means this car is probably 8 to 10 miles to the gallon, somewhere in there. We've got a Mark 10 Jag, the big sedan. The Mark II, I think, is really gorgeous in particular. Mark 9. So this is really old school. The Mark 10 was more of a modern car and the predecessor to the XJ sedan. Certainly design cues from Rolls-Royce and Bentley, but the side trim, I look at that and I see mid-50s Oldsmobile, that kind of thing. You can never get enough E-Type. And of course, the pre-E-Type darling Jaguar. This is an XK150 fixed head coupe. Mark 7 Jag. I'm going to guess this is a Mark 6, Mark 5. Beautiful color combination, sort of a light silver bronze with red interior, factory sunroof, and beautiful wood trim on the dash and the top of the door cards. Now going really way back in Jaguar's heritage, this is a 1939. It's the SS Jaguar. Now SS was originally Swallow Sidecar, a company founded by Sir William Lyons and his business partner, whose name escapes me. But at the onset of World War II, the SS for Swallow Sidecar, that was dropped. And the Jaguar was just another product of Swallow Sidecar. But at the outbreak of World War II, the SS was dropped, and all product was simply referred to as Jaguar. So that's how the brand came to be. And this is a lovely, lovely example, again, from 1939. And again, you'd see that moniker dropped for the obvious Nazi connection.
This is the American section. They've put a little American.
Yep. The diner. Yep. Do we love 50s Americana? Absolutely. This is where the term land yacht, I think, was coined. Well, since we have a diorama of literally a car in water, maybe it makes sense. For those in the know, one look at this grille says, well, it does say Edsel, but the design, certainly, there's nothing else like an Edsel. The Edsel was Ford's attempt to move slightly more upmarket than Mercury, but really the timing of the launch of this vehicle was very unfortunate. In 1958, the US was in a fairly serious recession, and the upper end of the car market was suffering. Was the Edsel particularly any worse than anything else? Not really. It did have some rather unusual styling, but given what else was coming out at that time period, can't really say it's any better or worse, just very distinctive. What really caused the Edsel's failure was simply splitting the market segment a little too thin for Ford. With GM having 5 divisions, Ford really couldn't support a fourth. And by 1960, the Edsel was done and exited the market. This particular car is very special. A 1953 Eldorado. This was one of 3 of GM's Motorama dream cars. The Cadillac Eldorado, let's see if I get this right, the Oldsmobile Fiesta, and the Buick Skylark. They were all convertibles, and their claim to fame was the curved windshield with the dog leg getting into it. Nothing else was being built that looked like this. Do you think this would be an easy car to restore? Nope. And then this particular example has the addition of a non-factory Continental kit. Continental, of course, being reference to the Lincoln Continental, which did have an externally mounted spare tire. because you know it's just not long enough on its own. Now we've got another Cadillac featured here. This, by the looks of it, would be 49 or 50. Am I close? 50, yeah. So the 49s were really the start of the tail fin, and the tail fin was inspired by the, which plane was it? I think it was the P-38. I could be wrong, but I'm not a plane guy, I'm a car guy, but it was inspired by the tail fin of some of the World War II bombers. Moving on to Mopar, Chrysler Corporation, we've got the Town and Country. These cars were very, very unique because they actually utilized an all-wood body construction, ash, and you can see beautifully restored ash. And I think the most famous of these would be the Town and Country convertible, but the sedan certainly cuts a pretty nice figure too. Now we're getting into Oldsmobile Super 88. Oldsmobile had their own overhead valve V8 in 1949? Cadillac did. Maybe Olds was a year after. Cadillac did a lot of firsts. Now, for those of you who are fans of horror movies, well, what do you think we have here? A Christine. Plymouth Fury. Looking quite menacing, and just as an interesting side-by-side, considerably lower, I would say 2, maybe even 3 inches lower than a GM product from roughly a similar era. Now this one has the spare tire indent. That was factory. That would make it a 59. And of course the movie car was a 58. Now let's get on to this, the Studebaker Commander. This was all new post-war. Studebaker would beat everyone to an all-new model after the end of World War II. The interesting thing is they didn't really need to do it. There was so much pent-up consumer demand when Ford, GM, and Chrysler launched their post-war cars, which were really warmed up 42s before the war put an end to production. People bought them. It didn't matter. So Studebaker, the fact they spent this amount of money tooling up an entirely new car may not have actually served them particularly well. Still, very interesting design. And the most distinct feature is that sort of bullet front end. Moving along to another Studebaker, a 1961 Hawk, which is based off the 1953 Commander, which was really, that was a revolutionary car. Not only for its packaging and proportions, but the fact it sat so low. As a matter of fact, I would argue the 53 Studebakers really gave us the proportions of cars that lasted probably well into the 1990s. And I say that in terms of height, fender height, width, and just general packaging. Have a look at this. This car, as mentioned, it's not a 53, but the body was carried over because at this point in time, Studebaker was already pretty financially strapped and they were warming up old product to try and keep it relevant. Well, if we get to 50s American cars with ventiports, we are talking about Buicks. Now, if you'll see on these two particular examples, one has 4, one has 3. The 4 ventiports denote the more senior long wheelbase model. Might be a 98. Roadmaster. So that's the top. And the junior model, which would be on a shortened wheelbase, this is a Riviera, Super Riviera. 3 Ventaports. Now if we go to something just a little bit older, 1951 Super 8, 3 Ventaports. So this would make it the junior model. So I'm going to take a walk over and we're going to look at a few more Studebakers. I think it's pretty cool that they have quite a number of them because they're kind of unusual. So 1924, 355 cubic inch, 6-cylinder with a monstrous 60 horsepower, but I would guess it's probably a pretty smooth engine. These were particularly well-built cars. The Studebaker brothers originally built horse carriages, so there were a lot of transferable skills there. And we have another orphan brand, Hudson. Many of these orphan brands ended up being part of American Motors, and that company itself succumbed probably in the mid to late 1980s, and Chrysler bought it, probably late 1980s actually. And one of the most valuable things that American Motors had was the Jeep brand. So that's why Chrysler wanted it. And to this day, even though it's Stellantis owns the remnants of that company, there still is a Jeep brand. And speaking of Mopar again, we have a 1934 Plymouth. Some British Leyland product with the Austin. And this interesting display is depicting the car coming down the assembly line. So this is a car I wouldn't expect to see here. Maxwell was eventually acquired by Walter P. Chrysler and became part of the genesis of Chrysler Corporation. We're now getting into one of my favorite eras of cars. It's pre-World War II, 1930s, and we've got a 1929 Cadillac here. Dual cowl Phaeton, so 2 windscreens, and at the passenger's rear door, just notice the extra little bit of detail with authentic wooden cane inserts in the doors. It's a very, very majestic era for cars. I just saw something that we're going to have to spend some time with. Okay, another absolutely stunning Cadillac. A 1930 Fleetwood with the V16. So how about that? Your Cadillac, you've greenlit 3 large motors, a V8, a V12, and a V16, and then this little thing called the stock market crash happens. You have literally built the biggest engine with the most cylinders the world has ever seen in a production car on the eve of a stock market crash. Well, at least it was beautifully styled, and the V16 is incredibly smooth, powerful, and delivers significant torque to pull this vehicle, which I'm sure has got to weigh in excess of 6,000 pounds. What do you think this is, Kurtski?
Very big.
You heard it here first, folks. It's very big.
No, it has a whole history.
And of course, Cadillac's crosstown rival, Packard, wasn't any less stunning in their designs. Have a look at this and note the really intricate lucite radiator mascot. So this car dates from 1926, and it does look maybe a touch simpler in design, but it's really stunning. Look at the dark purple bodywork, black fenders. You've got a stand-up spotlight. It's really, really sleek. So there's some very cool stuff here. If you were around in the 1980s, you may remember BMW introducing their technology wonder car, the E32 Series 7, E32 7 Series. And if you were lucky enough to own a 750i or IL, this was the power plant. BMW essentially put two of their inline sixes together. There are two distributors, two engine management computers. This is how they do it, and they got a jump on Mercedes-Benz. So Mercedes retaliated with the W140 S-Class, which sort of took a lot of BMW's thunder because they also brought out a 12-cylinder as well, but it was 6 liters, not 5. Now, if you want to see something kind of funky, check out a Chevrolet Corvair. This 1965 model sports its rear engine setup, which this particular car in general was fodder for Ralph Nader's very famous expose of Detroit called Unsafe at Any Speed. This car in particular, and if you're a Porsche owner like me, you'll know this from the 911s, when you put the big lump of metal behind the rear axle, you can create some very unusual handling situations. And for many Americans not used to a rear engine car, they didn't know how to handle it. Now, there are a lot of things that can be done to mitigate the effects of the heaviest part of the car sitting behind the rear axles. But in the 1960s, this car came out in 1960, I believe, along with the Pontiac Tempest, and I think there was a Buick, let's see, Pontiac Tempest and a Buick Compact. It's challenging to do this off the top of my head, but regardless, Corvair was the only rear engine. Now, let's get on to G-body cars. We've got a 1979 Oldsmobile, and of course we had the Buick, well, this basic body shell. This would go on to basically give us the absolutely phenomenal Grand National, the Buick Grand National, the Turbo 3.8. Then, of course, in '87, the GNX, which was the fastest North American production car. Now, this next one I'm going to show you is very special because this is almost identical to my very own personal 1974 Pontiac Trans Am, and I'm shocked to see one. I think it's really cool, and this has the same 400 cubic inch 6.6 liter V8 that mine has. Mine is Buccaneer red. This is, oh, what color is this? Cameo white, I believe. And we've got the red interior with custom seats. Mine is white custom seats. And this is a 4-speed car. Mine has the 3-speed turbo hydromatic. But otherwise, you know, in terms of options, this has the Pontiac Rally 2 rims. And blue lettering, where mine is the yellow, red, and black lettering on Buccaneer red. So have a close look at this. Interesting thing before I turn the camera on, 74 is the last year of the small rear window. 75, it would dip further into the C-pillars. This is also the last year for no catalytic converters, which is how they got away with having the larger transmission. 75 introduced catalytic converters and the turbo hydromatic 350. Okay, this one also has an 8-track tape player. That's pretty cool. So keep in mind, for this time period, all cars had to have bumpers that could withstand a 5-mile-an-hour crash. The sister car to this, the Chevrolet Camaro, made do with more conventional chrome battering ram style bumpers. The Pontiac guys, they got it right. They engineered what they called Endura, which is thermoplastic urethane, in front of the crash structure of the car with a urethane filler strip. So this strip, that's a common weak point on the Trans Am. I had to have mine replaced and repainted. It's fastened with a screw seemingly about every 2 inches, and it really doesn't allow for efficient expansion and contraction. So when I remounted mine, I put in far less screws, and I didn't screw them in so tight. So the part can breathe a little bit without cracking. But regardless, Pontiac styling and engineering did a super job integrating the safety bumpers into this car. Where you look at the Oldsmobile, you could see it's a battering ram. So again, super cool to see a car that's almost the same as mine in a museum. Maybe that's where mine belongs too. Okay, we've got a very special Cadillac for you here. Cadillac followed suit behind Oldsmobile. When Oldsmobile introduced the front-wheel drive Toronado in 1966, Cadillac got a version of it too in 67, and this is what we're going to look at, an all-black 67, and it is a left-hand drive car, so it would have been, a North American market car. This car was done under the direction of GM styling chief Bill Mitchell, who rolled out some of the most beautiful cars from GM. His designs were taut and crisp. 63 to 65 Riviera, and of course the 66 through 70 Riviera were his. The mid-year Corvettes, 63 to 66, another incredible styling exercise. But I think when you see the Cadillac, he just nailed this one. So with 66, or 67 rather, this car does have pop-up headlights, but they're on vacuum, and the vacuum, when it fills, will put the headlights up. So it sort of fails in a safe position. 67 had painted inserts, 68 went to cornering lights up here, 69 went to permanently visible headlights. So that's an easy way to tell your Eldorados from this time period. Under the hood, 429 cubic inch V8 4-barrel. The engine was mounted slightly offset to accommodate the turbo-hydromatic transmission driving the front wheels. Now, the transmission was turned 180 degrees to the engine with a very substantial chain coming off of the engine going to the torque converter on the transmission. It's, I hate using the word bulletproof, but it's incredibly robust, and it's basically what the Oldsmobile Toronado did too. So have a look at the 67 Eldorado again. Just take note of some of the design features, like the knife edge taillights. Every line on this car is crisp and taut. Cadillac didn't have a car like this. Prior to this version of the Eldorado was sort of a big, bloated, two-seat, well, actually a four-seat convertible that started with the 1959 model year. And they refined it and refined it. They toned down the styling excesses of the late 50s as Bill Mitchell took more and more control over GM styling direction from the retired Harley Earl. But this car, This is truly one of his masterpieces. So a few years earlier, we were parked next to a Ford Thunderbird from 1961. This was Ford's next generation of Thunderbird. Of course, we had the 55 through 57 two-seater, then came 58 through 60. That car was unique because it changed the design of the Thunderbird from a two-seater to a four-seater, and the market responded very favorably. The four-seater simply outsold the two-seater version by a wide margin. So for 1961, Ford came out with the Thunderbird and Lincoln launched the Continental. Both were, based on the same platform. The Continental's most famous feature, of course, is the coach style or suicide style rear doors. This particular Thunderbird has a fiberglass tonneau covering the passenger seats, giving it that sporty, two-seat appearance. But this is not a factory option in 1961. I believe they came certainly in 63, but maybe 62. But typically, when you get to a 63 Thunderbird, it would be very common to see the tonneau cover, the Kelsey Hayes wire wheels, which this car has, along with the M code 390, which denotes a dual 4-barrel setup. So just check out the wire wheels. So I mentioned early Cadillacs. Here is a 1959. This is a Coupe de Ville. An easy way to tell a Coupe de Ville from an Eldorado. Coupe de Ville or Series 62 has one trim spear running along the body side, and the Eldorado would have a very, very thick trim framing this area right to the back bumper and down along the rocker panel. In 59 it was solid. In 60 the silhouette was preserved with basically an outline of chrome top and bottom of that silhouette. So they were toning it down by 1960. Okay, time to go back to the future. We've got the DeLorean DMC-12. I'm sure most of you know the story of this particular vehicle, built by John DeLorean, backed by the Irish government. They gave him basically a plant to build the car, and the car just took a lot of time to develop. He was running low on cash, and then the US government set him up for a sting operation, which ultimately did not hold in court, but by that time he was done. The vehicle, it's very interesting, but it is unfortunately rather underpowered, using the Peugeot Renault Volvo V6, and I can't even recall if it's standard or automatic across the board. This is a manual shift car, which is very, very good. And of course, the claim to fame on DeLorean is a stainless steel body. And then, of course, this little movie franchise called Back to the Future, that kind of helped too. Now, these cars have a very strong following with many modern updates and a lot of folks doing LS swap V8s on them as well to give them the power that they really need. Mrs. Kurtski, what are you commenting about? What are you interested in, Mrs. Kurtski? Tell the world.
I'm just double checking. Did you say Irish government or British government?
Irish.
So it's British.
Well, the cars were built in Ireland. Oh, we've got a debate.
Belfast, Northern Ireland. Be careful.
Oops. I'm a car guy. I'm not a geographer. I don't know.
You may have viewers from Northern Ireland.
I won't now. Sorry. I'm a car guy. I don't know anything else. Car savant. So, Ferrari 456. And this particular car has the gated 5-speed manual, probably increasing its value by tens of thousands of dollars over an automatic. But really kind of a fun car, looks good. It's a V12 Ferrari. You can't go wrong. Now we're going to go to cars from Italy where you can go wrong, and that's a modern Maserati. Yeah, I know I shouldn't be rough on them, but they're not exactly the most reliable Italian car ever made. Pretty attractive though. This one is done in a deep purple with sort of a cream, almost a French vanilla color leather with black as well. And this may have the rather troublesome F1 inspired transmission. That's the troublesome transmission. As much as I love the exterior color, I'm not sure the red is really doing it for me, but I applaud the original owner's bold decision of this color combination. I think it's also interesting in this time period, the use of a regular profile instead of a low profile tire rim setup. This gives you an idea of what was happening back then. And what would we have without a modern Corvette? Well, not a complete collection, that's for sure. This is the current, where are we at? C8, C9? It's a modern Corvette. Very capable machine, and it's actually world class. So this is not the usual perspective that I get from a police car. Not saying that I've ever had speeding tickets. It's a Packard. It's kind of neat. I don't know. I think I'm getting bad karma by being on a police car. I'm gonna move on. But this is one of the few in the museum where you can actually get in, take pictures and whatnot. There are just a handful of them around. Okay, so I'm going to take over video footage, and we're going to go next to, where are we going to go next to? Ooh. A Hudson Hornet from 1957. Again, one of the orphan cars that would find its way to American Motors and ultimately under the ownership of Chrysler Corporation. Fairly typical 1950s. You've got, in this case, a tri-tone color combination, white roof, black, and a dark green body. It's not unattractive, but the lines are a little simpler. Oh, this is Kurtski wants to get in the cop car.
I'm all about law and order.
'52 Chevy. Oh, an Auburn. Look at this. 1936. I thought we were sort of organized in time frame, but I may have actually just gone the wrong way. Not that I think these cars aren't worth deserving of a thorough inspection, but I do want to ensure that I can capture the cars in the other building. I am going to stop at this particular very bright yellow Cord. So these were built 1936-37. This is the 812 model, and you can tell that because it has these wonderful external exhausts denoting the supercharged Lycoming V8. These cars were technologically very advanced with a pre-select gearbox, sort of a semi-automatic transmission. Pop-up headlights that you wind up from the dash. This particular car, series of cars, they were offered in various configurations. 4-door sedan, the 2-door convertible with both 2-seater and 4-seater variants were designed by a young stylist named Gordon Burig, who also designed for Cord and Duesenberg, because the cars, the brands, were all together as, I'm just trying to think of, Cord. It was Cord. Everett Loban Cord was the guy who pulled it all together and was successful up until about 1937, when he ran out of money. The tooling for that particular car that we just saw was sold to Graham Nash, and they turned it into their own cars, which survived for another couple of years up until the start of the Second World War. Another orphan brand, the Hutmobile. Check this out. This is an auto union. This would have been part of Audi. Matter of fact, you can even see the rings on the grille. Next, we've got a Karmann Ghia from Volkswagen. Now, this is something we don't see too often in Canada, or perhaps in America in general. A hand-built car called the Bristol. Bristol made fighter planes during World War II, and after that, well, they built really cool gentleman express cars that would have been on the same level as a Bentley. Now, next, this is a car I really, really dig, and I wish there would be more of them out there, because I think it's got great lines. And again, if I had a personal collection, I think this would be one that I would consider. This is a Volvo from 1971, the P1800E, 1.8 liter E4 fuel injection. Now, we're going to take a trip to the next building, which I assume is out through this door right here.